The fact of health is a mystery, and there's a number of things that bring it all together. So let's examine the emotional and the mental. There's several emotional things that really hurt a person's health. Number one is guilt. If a person has guilt, it really wears on a person and can devitalize them of their vital energy. It can also cause them to be self-destructive. This is one of the main benefits of the book, The Course in Miracles. It's really a course as to how to resolve guilt. I mean, the whole thing is about resolving guilt, if you really look at it as a whole. How many have read The Course in Miracles? Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting book. It claims to be given by Christ himself. It's up to the person's interpretation whether it did come from him, but I agree with most of it. There's a couple things that I disagree with in the book, but overall the principle of removing guilt is really important. And what causes guilt? The cause of guilt that we're going to present isn't really directly presented in the Course in Miracles, but this I find to be very effective. What's it?
Judgment of man, outside authority. If guilt is a natural born, you're not born with guilt as a child.
Okay.
It has to be taught to you by somebody.
Right. Guilt is not natural. As a little child, you don't feel guilty about anything until somebody teaches you to feel guilty. And Lorraine says it's outside authority. Outside authority, what kind of authority? Unearned? Yeah.
Unjust authority.
Yeah. But what's peculiar about this authority that produces guilt?
It's beastly.
And it's beastly why?
Fear-based.
Why? Why is it fear-based?
Critical.
Yeah, it's critical. And the authority purports to come from where? God. Right. In other words, the parent will say to the kid, God doesn't want you to do that. Okay? So they're projecting to the kid an outside God who has total authority to annihilate your body and soul. And telling you that if you do this naughty thing, God's going to be very displeased with you and he may punish you or whatever. He may do. You don't know what God's going to do, but boy, he has total authority and he's not a nice guy like me. He's a mean son of a bitch. So, I mean, we say God is love, but when we really teach it, we teach that we got a really mean God, right? Isn't that what really people really project? Well, yeah, God is love. He's going to wipe out these people and burn them as stubble. It's because he loves them. You know, yeah, God's really mean because he loves you. I mean, that's basically the message of a lot of these guys, you know. So we start with the little kids when they're young saying, God does not want you to do that. And so when the little kid does that, he steals a cookie out of the cookie jar or something like that, and he eats it. Oh man, God didn't want me to do this. God can read my thoughts. God's watching me. He knows it. I can't even enjoy this cookie now. What's going to do? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to burn in hell? You know, and he starts feeling this guilt. We start implanting this guilt in the little kids from the time they're young. And you think back to interesting scripture. Jesus says, it's better to have a millstone hung about your neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea than to offend one of these little ones. And many of us offend these little ones not realizing what we're doing by planting these seeds of tremendous guilt in them. Now we can teach them from right from wrong. How should we teach them? Should we say, now this is wrong and God doesn't want you to do this? What should we say instead?
By example.
Right, by example. Now mommy doesn't do this, or you can say mommy doesn't want you to do this. But when we tell them God doesn't want them to do it, then this plants the seeds of guilt. You don't know what God wants or doesn't want, for one thing. Are you his spokesman? No. When we say God doesn't want you to do this, we're setting ourselves up as being in the place of God sending a message from God to the kid. And this is the power of the beast spoken of in Revelations that is everywhere. And it starts with mom and dad and planting these seeds in these little kids. Yeah, Annie?
But if you say that guilt is because God is mad at you.
Well, I think you can have guilt from failed expectations. And you can do that to yourself or somebody.
Yeah, but everybody in the universe has the God within. And if we're not going by the God within, we're substituting a God without. And even if a person is an atheist, a hardened atheist, he has a God within him. And part of his being recognizes that. And any atheist that's subject to guilt, that's proof that he has a God within. Because that offending of the God within is what produces the guilt, whether you're a believer or a non-believer. When the person looks inside, whether he's an atheist or a believer, he sees the same thing. Now, whether a person is a believer or non-believer, he's either going by the God within or a God without. If the parent is a non-believer, he probably won't say, God doesn't want you to do this. He may use something else. In other words, mommy and daddy become the outside God instead of a God up there. The God up there is actually more potent to use for the little kid because that God can see him everywhere. But the child of an atheist, he thinks, oh, mom and dad can't see me, I'm getting away with it. And he may not feel so guilty. But if the kid's thinking God can see me and I'm stealing this cookie, then he's a little bit more nervous and affected by it. Yeah.
Don't most people, atheists or not, use a reward and punishment system of some sort for children? Do this and get punished, do that, and something good's going to happen,
Yeah, that has something to do with it. But for the atheist, there's going to be an outside authority, and reward and punishment always enters in. How it's done is the key. For an atheist family, they're going to substitute something for God in the child's mind. Now, if we raise our kids right and let them exercise their free will as much as possible and don't bring in the outside authority in an overwhelming way, then the kid can grow up without this overwhelming guilt. It doesn't matter if his parents are atheists or believers. But it doesn't matter whether they're atheists or believers. If they have the wrong attitude, they will have some outside God affecting the child's mind. For an atheist, outside God could be the parents. It could be an authority figure like the party leader doesn't want you to do this, or a particular philosopher. They may talk about a lot of atheists are into philosophy, and they may teach the kid the particular philosopher really knows what's going on and build him up almost like an outside God. The state could be an outside God, or the parents could be an outside God. But even for the atheist child, when he steals that cookie, his parents have taught him right from wrong, and in a way, it's important to teach him that stealing is wrong, but it needs the balance. If it's overwhelming that if you steal that cookie, it's like the end of the world, you're going to be punished somehow drastically, then the kid's going to feel some guilt. But I would imagine that's probably a little bit of a benefit for a kid being raised in an atheist family. The outside God thing doesn't come across as powerfully. It's still there. I mean, there's either the God inside or outside, one or the other. And if the parents are not allowing the God inside to manifest, there's an outside God that's going to hit the kid with some guilt. Yeah.
Even raising my son, I don't even want him to feel guilty because of what we believe or think. So what I try to do with him is I will just suggest, you make your own decisions. This might be what I might choose to do, but as long as, I just want to have him figure it out himself.
Yeah.
If he feels right about doing it and doesn't feel guilty, then go ahead and do it, even though I might not. But I want him to learn that.
Yeah, another interesting thing to do with kids is to just ask them what you think. What do you think? You think stealing this cookie is the right thing to do? Let him judge himself. Well, I guess not. You know. Well, what do you think Mommy should do to you for stealing this cookie? And he will often come up with a worse punishment than you'll come up with. Well, I guess I deserve not to have cookies for a week or something like that, you know. Until he kind of catches on, then he'll worm out of it. And we have a sense of right and wrong within us, and when we violate that, there's a natural guilt that comes because we don't really understand how to resolve it when we're young. We don't really understand that it's just a mistake rather than a violation. If we see it as a violation, it's different than seeing it as a mistake. The original word for sin in the Bible comes from a Greek word that means to miss the mark. And so when the ancients shot an arrow at a target and they missed, they sinned, according to the way they use the word. And when you shoot an arrow at a target and you miss, you don't think, oh no, I'm such a bad person. I'm not going to shoot another arrow at a target till I feel better. You know? No, you just shoot the arrow at a target right away because you don't feel any guilt over it. And that's the way we're supposed to handle a sin or a mistake. But what we do instead, we think we start condemning ourselves. We see it as a violation. If you shoot an arrow at a target and miss, it's an error. But if we see it as a violation, we have a totally different attitude, and then we can suffer this guilt. So whether it's an atheist kid or believer's kid, if he sees when he steals a cookie as a violation rather than an error, he's going to condemn himself to a degree. And yeah.
But JJ, there are some things that I would think that guilt would be accurate for. I mean, if I was to betray a master, that would cause guilt in me. If I were to cheat on my husband, that's an action that I'm doing that should cause guilt, right?
No.
Okay.
There you go. Go for it.
No, if you were to violate a great light, and you understood guilt, and you understood how to resolve it, the truth and error, what would happen is the light from your soul would just be taken, and you would feel quite depressed over it. You may not feel guilty, but you would feel a tremendous loss. Just like if you feel a tremendous pain somewhere in your body, you don't feel guilt, you just feel the pain. And so if you were under the tutelage of a master and you committed a tremendous violation of his trust, he would withdraw his light, your soul would withdraw its light, and you would feel a tremendous spiritual pain over it. And you either have to choose to go the dark side or, straighten yourself out. But if you understood guilt and knew how to resolve it, you wouldn't feel guilty over it. Now, if you felt guilty over it on top of everything else, that'd make it even worse.
Problem I have that other people may share a little bit is that I can resolve guilt and do quite often. For example, I'll take that extra piece of cake or and I feel genuine guilt, and I'm ashamed that I took the second piece or the bigger piece and stuff. But I can turn it off until I eat, and then I see evidence later and stuff, and I feel bad. I feel somehow after I eat the cake, I end up consuming the guilt in somewhat the same way I do the. It just depends on which one I'm concentrating on.
That's interesting. Nothing is completely good or bad. Even guilt serves its purpose. For the people that are not enlightened enough to understand how to resolve guilt at least will guide them basically the right direction, but it's not very efficient. It's like going back to shooting the arrow at the target. If you only shot once a month, because every time you missed you had to go curse yourself for a month, it would take a long time to become a good archer. but at least eventually you could do it. It just take a long time. And that's the way it is with us. If we're progressing by the use of guilt, because it's so inefficient, it takes us a long time to move ahead, because when we make a mistake, we curse ourselves, we feel unworthy to try again for heaven knows how long. Some people an entire lifetime. They may have an accident, injure somebody, and feel guilty for the rest of their life and never accomplish anything because they don't feel worthy of enjoying their life when they hurt somebody else, type of thing. And so guilt is a primitive guide, but it is a guide that guides the masses overall slowly along. This is one of the reasons that during our first 700 or 800 lifetimes we make such slow progress. We progress very slowly until we reach near the end of the wheel, so to speak, and then when we resolve guilt, so we get it out of the way, then our learning is greatly accelerated. This is a major milestone in resolving guilt. And when it talks about in the Bible about being saved of your sins, what it means basically is being saved from guilt. Once we understand guilt and resolve it, then we're delivered, or we're saved from the lower nature, and our learning and our progression is greatly accelerated. Okay, guilt is a major thing. Now for us, as we grow up becoming adults, the main thing that causes guilt is what we have been taught. And because very few people understand that they are to be guided by the inner God, by God speaking to their heart within themselves. They have an outer God somewhere. And even many New Agers I've met that claim to go by the inner God still have guilt. And the reason is because they haven't got rid of that outer God yet. Many of them will have the outer God as a guru, and the guru may teach the inner God, but if they violate what this guru says, their mind computes it as violating what God says, because the guru has such power over their hearts and minds. They still haven't let go of the outer God idea, even though they all believe the inner God. A number of New Agers I've talked to were raised in a religious setting. And in talking to them, you can tell they're still bothered by things. If you start talking about religion with them, they will often bring up something, and you can tell by their emotional reaction. They are still strongly affected. They still have a little bit of fear left of going to that hellfire in the next world. And they're trying to suppress it. And so they put it in the back of their mind and pretend that belief doesn't exist, but they haven't resolved that belief, and then they will claim to have a more enlightened philosophy. But when you really talk to them, you find out that damnation to hell and that outer God is still kind of bothering them. They haven't got it completely resolved. And you can usually see telltale things behind this. For instance, when they talk about religion, they'll feel angry. Oh, those son of a bitches, I'm not going to bother them with my presence, type of thing, And we need to resolve all this, the anger, the guilt, just let it all go. If the parents forced you to go to church and you didn't like it, fine, well, just let it go. We need to let it all go so that we can put all our attention on the God within. The key ingredient here in understanding this is energy follows thought. And if your thought is totally between you and the God within them, then you can resolve all the outer conflicts. If your thought is controlled, your thinking is controlled by an outer God in any way, then you're going to have some problem with guilt. So as we get older, most of us are influenced by the outer God for our entire lives. I'd say, over 95% of the population is controlled by the outer God to a great extent. The only way to release ourselves from that control is to realize that the law of God is written within our hearts. And it even says that in the Bible. It talks about the age of peace to come, it says God will write his law upon your hearts. And this is where the law of God needs to be written. If the law of God is written in the mouth or in the words of a book, and these words of the book are read to us, or this prophet speaks to us, and this prophet or outer authority or preacher or priest is speaking the words of God to you, and you accept that as the words of God, then he has power to make you feel guilty. Because you're accepting the outer God is there. The God is out there rather than in here. And when we accept the God out there, then we feel guilt. I remember the time when I was released from guilt entirely, when this teaching really dawned on me, was when I was excommunicated from the Mormon Church. When I was in the church, I obeyed the rules of the church. Because I obeyed the rules of the church, even though I understood a lot of these principles, I could still feel guilt. And then, when they excommunicated me, I had no outward authority anymore. So I had to look totally within. And one thing that dawned on me is I didn't feel guilt anymore. I thought, this is great. It's the best thing they could have done for me. Just throw me out. And since that time, I have never felt guilt over anything. I've made mistakes, but when I make mistakes and I realize it's wrong to make a mistake, but I feel that attitude that it's like shooting an arrow at a target. I miss the target. Well, I missed it. I'm going to do better next time. And so my progression has been greatly accelerated since they threw me out, so I have no outward authority telling me what to do. I have to rely on inner authority. So if you haven't been excommunicated from your outward authorities, excommunicate yourself. Release the outer authorities. Say, you have no power over me anymore. You have no power to make me feel guilty. Because what was interesting is even though I thought of myself as enlightened while I was still in the church, I didn't realize till I was thrown out that the church still had residual power over me, even though I realized these things. Okay, why did Jesus have to die on the cross? Well, he didn't really. It was something that pretty much had to happen, though, for an avatar like Christ that came and upset the apple cart of everybody's belief system at that time. He pretty much had to be prepared to do what was necessary. But he could have fulfilled his mission without dying on the cross. He exemplified the age of Pisces. In the age of Pisces, the key word is sacrifice. So he had to show sacrifice in some way so that love could be understood. The love that is exhibited through tremendous sacrifice. So if he didn't die on the cross, he would have had to do something else to exemplify the great sacrifice. But the cross was a pretty good way to do it because it was a pretty terrible way to go. There are some legends that he was stoned to death, and somebody just made up the cross. There's legends about that. But the mission of Jesus is quite a bit, the real mission is quite a bit different than presented in the religions. For one thing, Jesus himself is not the God of the universe. He's a great being. He's our elder brother, but he's not the God of the whole universe. He's one with the God of the whole universe. And when he says, I and my Father are one, he joins a oneness with millions of other beings throughout the universe that are attempting to be one with the one God. And then he said to his disciples, I will that you be one as I and my Father are one. So this oneness is for everybody, just not for Christ. And so the big claim that bothered the Jews, that he was like claiming to be God, he says, I and my Father are one. That really disturbed him. Yet this type of oneness, he said, is available to us all. Now, as far as the sacrifice for sin, he didn't make a sacrifice so we could just say, Jesus, accept me, I believe in Jesus, remove my sins. He did not make the sacrifice just so we could have an easy street and just proclaim Jesus and then go to heaven for eternity. That's not why he did all that. He came and sacrificed himself for our sins. Sins comes from the Greek word which means error. The ancient Greeks used the Greek word for sin when they were shooting an arrow at a target, or they shot an arrow at a target and they missed. Well, among the Greeks, that meant they sinned. Now, when a Christian person sins, what does he do? He thinks, oh man, I'm unworthy. I got to repent and ashcloth. And he feels unworthy to do anything for maybe months. Maybe he's paralyzed for a long period of time, and then after a period of penance, he may go back and try to improve himself again. But when you shoot an arrow at a target and you sin and miss, do you think, oh, I'm unworthy to shoot again? I need to go do some penance, and I'll come back in a month and I'll shoot another arrow at a target. No, you don't. So this is the way sin was in the mind of Jesus. Sin wasn't something that just would produce tremendous guilt that made you go away in the wilderness for a month and then come back later to do penance of some kind and then to start all over. But sin was just an error in thinking. Christ came to redeem us from our errors in thinking. Now, in redeeming us, one of the greatest errors in our thinking is to think that sin has to be followed by guilt. And this is a big mistake about sin. When you shoot an arrow at a target and miss, do you feel guilty? Oh, there's no guilt. You just think, well, man, that was a dumb mistake. Let me correct that, and I'll hit the bullseye this time, or at least try to. So there's no guilt. When there's no guilt, you can practice and practice and practice and improve and improve and improve 100 times faster than some archer that feels guilty after each shot. Take an archer who feels guilty after each shot and another archer who doesn't feel guilty, and which one's going to improve the fastest? The one that doesn't feel guilty may practice a couple hundred shots in one day. The one that feels guilty may be practice 3 shots in 2 months. He'll make a little tiny bit of progress, the guilty one. But the one without the guilt will go forward leaps and bounds. And this is what one of the things that Jesus' teachings, if they're understood correctly, will do, it will remove our guilt. Now people think, well, guilt is really a good thing, because if we don't have guilt, that's like having our conscience seared with a hot iron. No, it's not. A conscience is a sense of right and wrong. Now, Archer has it when he shoots at the target and misses it. He has a sense as to whether he missed the target or not. He doesn't need guilt. Guilt is different than conscience. Conscience is a sense of right and wrong. Guilt is not conscience. Guilt is produced by illusion. It is the greatest tool the Dark Brothers has to control everybody with. That's what causes everyone to worship the beast, is guilt. Without the beast, there can be no guilt. The beast is the outside authority that takes the place of God. And where is God? The 144,000 had the mark of God within. It was in their forehead. Those who had the beast had the outward mark in their forehead. Those who were redeemed from the mark of the beast had the inward mark in the forehead, and it was the name of God in their forehead. And the name of God was who? What is it? For that gal over there, it's Shannon. Okay. For this gal over here, it's Sharon. Okay, so all of us have the mark of God in our forehead. We have to look within and find that I and my Father are one. You and your Father are one. That's where God is. It's right within you. And when you realize it's within you, the outward gods have no power to produce guilt. And this is what Jesus taught. The kingdom of God is within. He says you won't find the kingdom by looking without. You have to look within to find the kingdom. And that's where the name of God is within. That's how you escape the beast. And that's how you escape guilt. But think of how guilt is produced. Guilt is produced because you allow the voice of God to be given from without as a divine authority. It may be a prophet, priest, king, doctor, lawyer, political leader, somebody that you put all your faith in has power to take the place of the God within, of the judgment within that is within you. When you allow that person out there to take that power away from you, he then has power to produce guilt in you. He can then tell you, if you eat peas, that is wrong. God does not want you to eat peas. So if you eat peas, and then somebody says, did you eat some peas today? Yeah, man, I feel really bad. Well, that seems funny, but think like in the Mormon church. Did you drink a cup of tea today? Oh, man, I guess I did. I feel really, really bad about that. Somebody out there has power to make you feel guilty for drinking a cup of tea. Now, that's the power of the beast. We must escape that power of the outward authorities having power to make us feel guilty. If you want to drink a cup of tea, you have to go within and discard all the authorities and say, does the presence of God within me, is that all right with him if I drink a cup of tea? And check. Check with it. I check with mine all the time. And, sometimes he'll say, well, hey, you're going a little bit overboard. Don't drink that extra glass of wine. But, so check with your inward authority. And remember, don't confuse the inward and outward. If you get them blended, well, then you can think, well, my inward supports this. So the beast operates through the physical, the emotional, and the mind, but its greatest power is in the emotions. And this is where guilt is settled. It's in the emotions. But it can be unraveled by the mind. When the mind sees the cause of guilt, that is caused by some outward authority assuming the place of God and telling you what to do, telling you what is right and wrong, and you're violating that which that outward authority told you is right and wrong, and it produces guilt. When you see that, then the guilt just disappears. I used to feel guilt when I was in the church, and then when I realized this principle, all my guilt just disappeared. I haven't had guilt since about anything. It's really great. I never feel guilty. But when I was in the church, I was feeling guilty all the time. I remember I was at this priesthood meeting. A guy got up and he says, if I were to have, I was just a young guy at the time, if I were to ask of everyone in this room who's read a Playboy magazine the past month to raise their hand, how many hands would go up? And I thought, oh man, I'd have to raise my hand. I thought, boy, would that be embarrassing or what?
Did anybody raise their hand?
He didn't actually ask. He just said, if I were to ask. And I thought, please don't ask. Yeah, and I always felt real guilty about looking at a Playboy magazine, But I was subject at that time. When I was in the church, I was subject to the power of the beast. They had power to make me feel guilty for doing fairly innocent things. At a barber shop, there's one laying there. You look through it. Big deal, But anyway, when you overcome guilt through the realization that it is produced by the power of the beast, all your guilt will just disappear. You'll never feel guilty again. Now, if you make a really bad mistake, you hurt somebody's feelings. I hurt a friend of mine's feelings the other day, and I felt bad about it. I didn't feel guilty about it. I thought, well, I'll be more careful with him next time, and be more gentle with my words. But I didn't feel guilty about it. it's a great relief to have this lifted. And that's one of the major things that Jesus came for. That was the true atonement, is to be relieved of guilt. And to be relieved of guilt furthers your progression miraculously. Then you can move ahead, you can concentrate on the God within, and He is your final authority. That doesn't mean we discount everything from without. We listen to things from without and register with the God within. Somebody may say something fairly crazy from without, and maybe the God within will say, it's not as crazy as you think. Listen. And so you pay attention, and maybe it's confirmed. Another person will say something everybody agrees with, and the God within says, yeah, everybody thinks that, but it's not right. Listen to that inner voice, and it will always guide you correctly. And you'll be amazed how many of the outer voices are completely wrong.
Thanks for listening to the New Age Christian Synthesis podcast. If what you heard rang true and you'd like to find out more, please visit J.J. Dewey's website at freeread.com. That's FREEREAD.com.